Okay, so let's try using the inference to the best explanation as a tool to form an argument that addresses this question, does God exist? Okay, so such an argument would likely have as its first premise the same sentence I asked you to consider in your thought primer. If the odds of our universe and its life-enabling features to come into existence out of chance are nearly zero, then it's reasonable to conclude that some kind of supernatural force created the universe. Premise number two. The odds of our universe and its life-enabling features to come into existence out of chance are nearly zero. Therefore, it's reasonable to conclude that some kind of supernatural force created the universe. All right, so that conclusion does follow from the premises as long as the premises are true. So are they? So let's look at that second premise first, this one that talks about the odds of the universe. Is it really true that the odds of our universe and all of the features that enable life to exist, is it really true that the odds of those coming into being out of pure chance and coincidence, is it really nearly zero? There's a philosopher named Alexander Pruss at Baylor University, and he contended with this question. He determined that the odds of a life-enabling universe forming by chance is 1 in 10 million to the 124th power. Now, maybe you can get your head wrapped around what that number actually is and how big it is. I can't. It's astronomically large, 10 million to the 124th power. But that's what Pruss says are the chances of our universe forming out of pure coincidence, out of pure chance in the way that it did with the features that it has. Similarly, he determined that there would be no universe in existence if the expansion rate of that universe were off by 1 part in a million million. Okay? If it was off by 1 part in a million million, the universe would have never expanded. And the idea that we have gravity functioning in the way that we do is greater than 1 part in 10 to the 40th power. So he concludes that the universe had to be nearly exactly the size to develop rather than collapse, and it had to have all of these features that it has in order for it to come into existence. And the chances of it having these features by chance are extremely, extremely slim, okay? Other folks have looked at certain things that come into existence and have argued that these things couldn't have evolved to be what they are, because if they're even missing one thing, they wouldn't be the things that they are. So you think about, for example, a mouse trap. And the odds of not the odds. If you take any one of those elements of the mouse trap away, it won't function. The whole thing wouldn't function. And you can't reduce down the mouse trap's parts further than this and still call it a mousetrap. And folks have made the same kinds of arguments about our eyes, that there's an irreducible complexity to our eyes that indicates that they didn't just come out of pure chance and they didn't evolve, that they were created. They came into being by a creator. Similarly, with the odds of our proteins having what was necessary for RNA and then in turn DNA, 1 in 10 to the 125th power. So all of this is evidence that folks use to point to this second premise being true. It does seem that the odds of our universe and its life-enabling features to come out into existence out of chance, they really are nearly zero. Okay? Okay, so the second premise seems to be true. But this first premise it's a tricky one, right? Because it's an if-then statement. It's a conditional statement. And it's one that deals with reasonableness. And it says, if the odds of our universe and its life-enabling features to come into existence out of chance are nearly zero, then it's reasonable to conclude that some kind of supernatural force created the universe. I can't prove that statement to you. That's a statement you're going to have to decide is true or false. Do you think that if the chances of things unfolding as they did out of chance are nearly zero, almost impossible, that the most reasonable conclusion, the best explanation for why the universe came into being in the way that it did, was that it was intentionally created? If you believe that, and you accept my evidence of the second premise, then you'd probably accept the conclusion. But I don't know it for certain, but it seems reasonable to conclude that the universe and all of its complexity was brought into being by some supernatural force. some supernatural intelligence. All right? So if you accept both of those premises, it seems likely you would accept the conclusion as well.